Okay, folks, buckle up, because today we're diving headfirst into something that affects way too many people. Ischemic stroke.
Ooh, yeah, that's a big one.
We've got some fascinating research from ischemic stroke, Step Pearl's review, and we're going to break it all down.
Break it down now.
Not just what it is, but what you need to know to stay informed and stay healthy.
Exactly. Forewarned is forearmed, as they say.
This is the most common kind of stroke, and there's a lot more to it than you might think.
Yeah, there's a lot of layers we're going to peel back today.
We're talking about different types, the things that put you at risk, and why understanding all this is so crucial for your health.
Absolutely. This is knowledge that can make a real difference.
And to guide us through this complex world, we've got our amazing expert.
Hey, happy to be here.
So let's start with the basics.
Sounds good.
For those of us who aren't doctors, can you explain what an ischemic stroke actually is in plain English?
I think a lot of people hear the term and they're not really sure what it means. So yeah, let's break it down.
I feel like I've heard of it, but do I really know what it is?
Probably not, because it's a little more complicated than just the name.
Right.
So in the simplest terms, an ischemic stroke is like a brain attack.
Okay, brain attack kind of scary.
Yeah, it is serious stuff. It's what happens when a blood vessel that supplies blood to part of your brain suddenly gets blocked, and that cuts off the oxygen and nutrients that part of your brain needs to survive.
So it's like a traffic jam in your brain's highway system.
You got it, a perfect analogy, and those brain cells start to die really quickly without that constant flow of blood.
Oh, wow. So what actually causes these blockages in the first place? Are they all the same?
That's a great question, and the answer is nope, they're not all the same. We can group them into two main types, thrombotic and embolic.
Right, thrombotic and embolic.
Yeah, so thrombotic is when a blood clot forms directly in one of the brain's arteries.
So that's like the roadblock forming right there on the highway.
Exactly like a construction zone suddenly popping up and everything coming to a standstill.
Makes sense. And what about embolic?
Embolic stroke is a little different. It's when a clot forms somewhere else in the body, often in the heart, and then it travels up to the brain and gets stuck in one of the smaller arteries.
So that's like debris from another road suddenly flying in and blocking your path.
Exactly. A rogue piece of traffic cone causing chaos.
Oh, wow. Okay, so it's either a local blockage or a traveler from somewhere else. Fascinating.
It is, and you know what? The source material gets even more specific than that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it talks about different subtypes of ischemic stroke.
Subtypes? That sounds a little overwhelming to me.
I know it sounds complicated, but it's actually not that bad.
Yeah.
Think of the subtypes as just giving us more information about where and why that blockage is happening.
Okay, so it's like narrowing down the culprit?
Precisely like a detective getting more clues.
I like that. Okay, so what are these subtypes?
Well, one is called large artery atherosclerosis.
Okay, large artery atherosclerosis.
This is basically when plaque builds up in the larger arteries of your brain.
Plaque? Like, what is plaque exactly?
Think of it like gunk, the buildup of cholesterol and other stuff that clings to the walls of your arteries and eventually causes a blockage.
Oh, yuck. So it's kind of like how a kitchen pipe can get clogged if you pour grease down it.
You got it. A perfect analogy. Not that I recommend pouring grease down your kitchen sink, of course.
Definitely not. And what about the other subtypes?
Well, another one is small vessel disease.
Small vessel disease.
This is when the blockage happens in the smaller, deeper arteries of the brain. And high blood pressure is often the main reason behind this one.
So those tiny vessels get damaged over time by high blood pressure and then become vulnerable to blockages.
Exactly. High blood pressure is a silent killer for a reason.
It makes you think twice about keeping that blood pressure in check.
You said it, prevention is key.
So we've got the large arteries and the small vessels. What's next?
Another subtype is called cardioembolism.
Cardioembolism. Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds serious.
It can be. This is where a clot forms in the heart itself and then travels up to the brain.
Oh, wow. So it's like the clot is going on a little adventure.
Kind of, but not a good one. This often happens in a chamber of the heart called the left atrial appendage. And there's a heart rhythm disorder called atrial fibrillation that significantly increases the risk of this type of stroke.
Atrial fibrillation, is that like an irregular heartbeat?
Exactly. The heart's not beating in a nice steady rhythm, and that can cause blood to pool and clot.
So it's all connected. Heart health, brain health. It's like a domino effect.
Precisely. Everything in the body is linked in some way.
Fascinating. So we've covered 3 subtypes. What's the last one?
The last one is a bit of a mystery. It's called cryptogenic stroke.
Cryptogenic stroke. That sounds kind of intriguing.
It is. It means that even after a lot of investigation, we can't pinpoint the exact cause of the stroke.
So it's like encountering that roadblock with no explanation.
Exactly. A medical mystery Still waiting to be solved.
Wow, so there are so many different ways these blockages can happen. It really makes you realize how delicate the brain's blood supply is.
It really does. Every second counts when it comes to blood flow in the brain.
Speaking of vulnerability, let's talk about risk factors. What are the things that make someone more likely to have an ischemic stroke?
That's a crucial question, and the good news is many risk factors are modifiable, meaning we can take steps to reduce our risk.
Okay, so what are some of the big ones?
Well, hypertension or high blood pressure is a major one.
High blood pressure. Yeah, I've heard that's bad, but how does it actually increase stroke risk?
It puts a lot of stress on those blood vessel walls, making them more susceptible to damage and blockages.
Oh, I see. So it's like wearing down the highway over time, making it more prone to potholes and cracks.
Exactly, and those cracks and potholes are where the blockages can happen.
So it's not just about managing blood pressure for the sake of a number. It's about protecting those delicate blood vessels.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
What other risk factors are there?
Another big one is diabetes.
Diabetes. Okay, how does that play into it?
Over time, high blood sugar can damage blood vessels throughout the body, including those in the brain, and that damage makes them more prone to clotting.
So it's not just about managing blood sugar for energy levels. It's about protecting those blood vessels everywhere.
Absolutely. And we can't forget about smoking.
Right? Smoking's bad for everything.
Pretty much. It's a double whammy for stroke risk because it damages blood vessels. A&D makes the blood itself more likely to clot.
Wow, talk about a 1-2 punch. So are there any other major risk factors we should be aware of?
Yes, one more big one, high cholesterol.
Ah, cholesterol, the silent clogger.
Exactly. It contributes to that plaque buildup we talked about earlier, leading to atherosclerosis.
Right, like that clogged kitchen pipe?
Yep, keeping cholesterol in check is like keeping those pipes clean and free-flowing.
Okay, so we've got high blood pressure, diabetes, smoking, and high cholesterol, all major contributors to ischemic stroke risk.
Exactly, those are the big ones. But there are other factors too, like age, family history, and even things like drug use.
So it's a complex interplay of different factors.
It really is. And stepping back to look at the bigger picture, it's important to understand that ischemic strokes can have a huge impact on a person's life.
Yeah, I imagine it's not just a minor health blip.
Unfortunately not. It can cause long-term disabilities affecting things like speech movement, even cognitive function.
Wow, that's scary.
It is. The effects can be devastating both for the individual and their loved ones.
So what's the key takeaway here? What should we remember from all this information?
The good news is knowledge is power. Understanding the different types of ischemic stroke and the risk factors involved can help us make informed decisions about our health.
Right, so we can take control of our health.
Exactly. We can take steps to manage those risk factors like controlling blood pressure, managing diabetes, quitting smoking, and adopting a heart-healthy lifestyle.
Prevention is key.
Couldn't agree more.
This deep dive has been eye-opening.
I'm glad to hear that.
We've learned that an ischemic stroke happens when a blood clot blocks an artery in the brain, cutting off its vital supply.
Right.
We explored the two main types, thrombotic and embolic, and even delved into those subtypes.
The large artery atherosclerosis, the small vessel disease, the cardioembolism, and the mysterious cryptogenic stroke.
Exactly.
Yes.
And of course, we can't forget those risk factors. Hypertension, diabetes, smoking, high cholesterol, all things we can actually do something about.
Absolutely. And as we wrap up, I'd like to leave you with a final thought.
Okay, I'm listening.
Considering the risk factors we discussed, what steps can you take to prioritize your brain health and potentially reduce your risk of stroke?
That's a question worth pondering. Small changes can make a big difference.
They really can.
Thank you for guiding us through this complex topic.
My pleasure.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into ischemic stroke.
Stay healthy, everyone.
Remember, knowledge is power when it comes to your health, and we're all in this together.
We are.
Until next time, stay curious and stay informed.
See ya.